takes a step forward.
Okay. Welcome back to another episode of the Then and Now podcast, especially for our people on Anchor that are watching now. Thank you guys for
listening
tuning in. This has been, I know haven't been active on here in a minute. So we've been trying to, get back and create more content for you guys. Today, we're going to be focusing more so on the evolution of animation. Animation is important to all the people we have here, to all the co-hosts and our special guest. We have Mr. Lakeith Stanley, author extraordinaire.
Lakeith Stanley.
His name's getting further and further from
my actual name. That's how legends are, man. Yeah, that's right.
Hey, legends are built, man. He built different. Obviously, we've all talked about in intimate talks about how much animation has meant to us and our favorite animated things. I want to kind of get into the origin, like our analysis of the origins of animation. Obviously, you'll see a lot of behind-the-scenes footage of like old-timey Disney stuff and how they would have to draw picture by picture and like scan things in one at a time and things like that, and seeing the evolution of animation from those times or even like older anime to the kind of technology we have now on something like a Demon Slayer, a Jujutsu Kaisen. What do you guys take away as far as like your analysis of the history of animation?
History shows that everyone else's animation is better than American animation, like superbly, like significantly. Like in the times where Disney was putting out the crazy looking cartoons that they were putting out, like anime looked the way it was, the same way it did, but in black and white. Like it shows the genuine, like significant difference in the level of skill for those Japanese artists compared to the American artists and what they were putting out at the time. I'll start there.
What about you, Ethan?
So one thing, the Otis is right that the skill level or requirements were different between, obviously Asia and America or different parts of the world. But one thing that America did do that Asia did not do is they put out an animated feature film first. An old school feature film with obviously Snow White was the first one. So that's one thing they did. They committed, Walt Disney and his people committed to doing a full-blown feature film animated, and we had to give credit to that, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have had the people backing anime or believing in anime or anything else that's around still to this day.
All right, Mr. Lakeith.
I mean, honestly, my introduction to animation has to be OG American cartoons. That's what I can think of, and that's what just
half of which is drawn by Japanese animation studios.
Yeah. So I mean, like, but I was gonna say, like, American cartoons kind of helped me dip my toe into the animated world, but the Asian culture really just like opened my eyes to just so much. Studio Ghibli especially, we understand just the attention to detail that they put in their animation. It's crazy. Just things that you wouldn't normally pay attention to, they pay attention to those things to just take you on a whole journey of what their story is. So yeah, I mean, and too, like you started mentioning some animes. I'm just gonna touch on that real quick. We see how animation grows with a series, just how important that is, like how much the fan base actually appreciates that. Like even with One Piece, One Piece was like cool and okay, and then as it developed and the characters got a whole facelift, like I appreciated that for sure. As someone who wasn't a diehard fan to start off with, when the animation cleaned up and got more crisp, I was really more into it at that point. But that's
it got significantly more crisp. I mean, it's like if you go back and watch like because the first 200 episodes are not HD. Then once it finally gets HD, it gets better. But then also it gets further along when they actually evolve the character look and everything else too. It's a world of difference. It is like a night and day.
Right, absolutely.
So what do you guys think? Oh, go ahead, Otis. Finish your point. My bad.
No, just agreeing that it's a huge difference between One Piece initially to where it is now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. My question being, what do you guys believe the allure is when it comes to animation? Obviously, some people would prefer animation to live action stuff. What is special about live action that differs from? What's special about animation that differs from live action?
You can do things that you can't do on live action. Like, I mean, you can have a Super Saiyan fighting in space, animate and look great.
Right.
You try that live action, and we get Dragon Ball Evolution.
Well, actually, we have a very, very firm policy that you cannot mention that movie on this podcast, Odyssey. That's 2 strikes. 2 strikes. But that being said, he's 100% right. That's the beauty of animation. You can do things you simply cannot or should not do live action. I'll also bring up the Demon Slayer. We were talking about before. There's a part where the way when he swings his sword, you actually have the kind of Okami style of like artwork. So it's in the same context of seeing one art style of animation, you can bring in a different type of art style at the same time, and it works if you blend the two well. And that's something you can only do with animation.
Like,
if
do you know how bad Tanjiro fighting live action would look? Like, just a wet sword, basically. Like, what do you do?
It wouldn't work. Yeah.
I just feel like you got to stay in your lane when it comes to like. I don't think that the whole live action. There can be a good live action. I just feel like live action movies almost set themselves up to be parodies. Like, they don't take themselves seriously off rip. Because like we've seen plenty of good action movies and good action movies with fantasy violence in them. But it's like, it's like for some reason when we switch over to let's take let's do something that was an animated work and turn it into a movie. It gets really, and it's the cheddar, bro. It's the money. It's got to be the money. At the same time, just stay in your lane. Don't do too much. Don't make the whole battleground water. Just make the sword water, and then just go crazy. Like,
but it's like there are properties that have been translated into live action medium that are supposed to be simple, like things like Rurouni Kenshin or Death Note. Or
no.
What else should be? Cowboy Bebop shouldn't be.
All right, we have to stop bringing up horribleness. Horribleness.
Well, okay, give me the good examples, here.
Good example. This man is full of jokes today. I like his jokes. I like his comedy. Actually, what's funny? Rurouni Kenshin, that one that came out last year. That's probably one of the better ones, even though it's based off of Samurai X more so than actually.
Like, outside the fighting scenes, that movie is unwatchable.
Yes, but the look of it actually looks like a feudal Japan. The casting, the sword fights, like you said, the fight scenes. I mean, if you're going to if we're basing this off of fight scenes, that movie which shall not be named about Goku, those fight scenes are abysmal. That movie should not be named. That movie should not be named about Aang, or as they pronounce it.
I'm about to say Aang.
Yeah, that's abysmal too. I mean, so I know they have a live action One Piece coming up. These things
going out there, still Asian stuff.
Still Asian stuff, but it's like there's certain things that just kind of can't. I don't think are meant to work in live action.
So getting into, I want to kind of focus more on animation itself and the styles of animation as time progresses in. Obviously, when you look into the 90s and somewhat into the early 2000s, there's a particular form of style of animation. I can't really put an exact name on it. When you look at something like Yu Yu Hakusho, like you guys know what I mean, like that particular
the angular
style.
Yeah.
Why, like, what do you guys think sets the tone? Obviously, once one animation is successful using that style, a lot other anime, kind of like in any kind of field, you kind of copy what's successful. What do you guys think set the tone with that animation in particular, and what was the shift going forward?
DBZ.
But it wasn't the original DBZ. Yeah, it probably was DBZ, but it wasn't the original. It wasn't until after, I guess, into the Namek saga, right, when it kind of changed the art style.
Yeah, DBZ, not Dragon Ball, like the original Dragon Ball.
No, not Dragon Ball, but in the Namek arc, probably, somewhere in there.
So meaning that was a shift for you, Otis, when you saw that shift, the animation?
Yeah, once like it was just like certain way, like the way that the eyes and hair were drawn, like the way that the colors were put on the screen. It was the particular style, and then just kind of just mimicked by everybody else. Because like I guess with DBZ, like they started off in the 80s, and then they went into that like their biggest season was the Namek saga with Frieza, and that's when their production value went up, and then pretty much everyone else just kind of mirrored their style after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also as Stan mentioned, Studio Ghibli style was very great, but it was the influence Studio Ghibli had was more about the storytelling, the actual art style, because it was meant to be almost like a fairy tale. So it was never trying to push the envelope as far as having extreme types of detail on the character's arms or musculature, that kind of stuff. It was never trying to go that route. So it's a very different influence that it had kind of had. But DBZ was all about
it's a weird thing with Ghibli though, because like their art still looks nice today.
It's clean. Yeah, it's very clean.
It's made in the older styles. Like you can see that the effort that they put into making their movies in general.
Yeah. Well, so one thing too is the difference between animation and art style or art direction. So Studio Ghibli's animation is beautiful. Like My Neighbor Totoro, like those kind of things as far as the way the characters move, it's fantastic.
They make bubbles look like mystical objects somehow.
Yeah, it's almost unparalleled what Ghibli has pulled off over the years. But as far as the over-the-top designs or character designs, that's a different type of story. That's a different thing altogether. And that's fine. They know what they want, what they like to do, and they're kind of doubling down on that. And you mentioned the evolution. We could have a whole talk on just the evolution of Dragon Ball Z, or going back to Akira Toriyama when he originally made Dragon Ball, how as we did a little kid that had Goku's arms barely even had bends in them, and how he had to age him up to give him bends in his elbows during fights. They made it more angular.
Powerpuff Girl arms.
Yeah, very Powerpuff Girl arms with almost kind of pudgy fingers and stuff too. So it's not just the idea of the evolution of the art style being used to kind of for the movement of the characters, but also to how you want them to look better, look more badass, look more grown up in the settings, those kind of things. Could you imagine a Super Saiyan 3 Goku trying to intimidate somebody if he looks like a kind of a pudgy, rounded figure?
I think they have an episode of South Park where they tried to do something very close to that.
Yes, they did.
I think that's what it will look like.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Quick intermission for the two people that are here in the Wisdom Chat. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we appreciate you guys and your support. If you guys would like to come up and be a part of the show, we would love to welcome you. If you have any thoughts on the topics as we're discussing them, feel welcome to come up and give us your thoughts, and we can have a great conversation. Continue. Sandy, do you have a point on this?
No, I've just been honestly listening, just because I agree with both of E and O about. For one, just about how Studio Ghibli can make anything ordinary seem extraordinary. And that goes to my point about just staying in your lane when it comes to the live action thing, just doing what you can do and then just doing it well, focusing on what you can focus on and doing it well, instead of trying to hit every aspect of a live action in one live action. Because it's so hard to do, because like Otis said, with animation, you can do so many things beyond what you can do with the live action. So just bite off little pieces and bring that to the live action stage. So many more viewers would be impressed, as opposed to just trying to spend your whole budget on, I'm not even going to use the references, the examples for the things that we already named that shall not be named, but y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah,
there is a One Piece live action series on the way.
It's already.
That's intimidating.
They're already filming it.
That's intimidating, because I'm already like, bro, how many, what are you really gonna do? Freaking Luffy has a lot of moves in his arsenal, and you're not gonna try to put
what is Frankie gonna look like?
Johnny Bravo.
Would they have him in those bikini briefs from the jump with who'd you even cast for that? Yeah, because also, this is something that already exists now. They have all kinds of stage plays they've done in Japan for One Piece. I haven't seen any of them, but I've seen pictures of how the characters look, and they look almost like parodies in the stage plays. So the idea, and also the Luffy and all his crew, the Straw Hats, they're so over the top. The whole world is so over the top in and of itself. Trying to take it seriously in live action is an ask. It is a big ask. It just is.
What timeline? What part of the story is it supposed to take place in?
It's supposed to be the beginning. I
think they're starting from I think.
Man, so we're gonna see all that stuff happen in Nami and Arlong and all that.
Yeah, that's a good question. How many episodes can it possibly?
What does a fish man look like live action?
Yeah.
That's a big
that can either be super dope or
the pirates from Pirates of the Caribbean, the one shark dude.
If you did that'd be
Disney
crazy.
Budget.
That's Disney budget though. That's Disney budget. Because actually, Deb brings
Well,
it up. I
Disney
know
at
it's
that
off
point
topic.
for a Dead Man
Pirates,
Chest.
Yeah, yeah, it
Pirates
was-
of the Caribbean's always been Disney.
It's an IP ride. It's a Disney ride. It's IP. But you made a good point though, Soups, in that if you go back and watch those movies now, the Pirates of the Caribbean with 2 and 3, those effects still hold up really, really well.
Really do.
Yeah, look really
It's
dope.
still
Like
looking
Davy
well.
Jones.
Davy Jones
budget.
still
Disney budget.
That's Disney budget though. Yeah, it's Disney budget. Yeah.
Right. So you guys spoke on it, mostly Otis, on the dichotomy between American animation and Japanese animation. What could you guys point out some specific differences to me that you see between something like Batman the Animated Series, which was created in Asia, which I think Ethan told us earlier, but that or other animation, American animation styles like that, which are mostly superhero stuff, or maybe like Codename Kids Next Door, stuff like that. What are the differences you see between that and an Japanese animation?
I mean, like again, like the Batman animated series made by a Japanese animation studio, Superman animated series, Japanese studio, Iron Man Japanese studio, Spider-Man Japanese studio, X-Men 97 Japanese studio. Like, what actually is like, what's the American style? Exactly.
Let's go Cartoon Network then, where a lot of like Codename Kids Next Door, Samurai Jack, or American Dragon Jake Long. Well, that was Disney.
Or but that's another one. The Disney studios did have a lot of, like Disney Afternoon. A lot of those were actually in-house at Disney, because Disney Studios was a very prominent figure for animation. It still is to this day.
Yeah, Disney still has some of the best animation. When they choose to make animation, it looks great. Like Kim Possible still holds up to compare to stuff that's on TV to this day.
It's a fun one. It's a very fun. It's again, it's like Stan was saying. It's like having a lane and choosing your style, your art style, your aesthetic, the choice you want to do. It's like our boy Oda, who does One Piece. The manga are much better, in my opinion, than the manga look better than the show.
You put it this way, the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series back in the 80s. That was an American cartoon.
Yeah.
The reboot in 2000, the one that everybody like actually liked, that was Japanese animation studio.
Yeah, none of those new ones are. Yeah, but it's deliberate choice as far as how you want to draw your characters, how you want them to look, and things of that nature. But to answer Soup's question or Charlie's question though, as far as the differences between animation in America and in the East, oftentimes it's a matter of the intention. So they have the whole what's that called? Stan probably knows this. I know he's gone to school for animation on some level, with the squish and pull, or the when you want characters to kind of like seem like they're actually the way they stretch and they move, their movement is done. In the American studios and animation, they really emphasize that. So say, for example, if you go back to the 60s era of Tom and Jerry cartoons, when Tom gets hit in the head by like a frying pan, you can tell his head is like getting squished the right way to make it emphasize the idea of pain. But in anime, they typically try to make them seem more powerful. So say, for example, with Fist of the North Star, when he's getting shot, it's very minimal as far as actual movement on the body. It's meant to be, they use like the fast lines to show the speed instead of doing the squish and pull method as much. That's one example of how the different philosophies on animation between the East and the West.
So just saying that again, just to kind of repeat what you said for the audience, you're saying that American animation is more self-deprecative versus Japanese, which is more, I guess, boastful and heroic.
Yeah, that was one of the philosophies back in the day. Yeah, they wanted to emphasize showing the characters like their subtle movements much more, and with the pain and things of that nature. Like going back to Steamboat Willie, showing him just dancing slowly and kind of his body moves, as opposed to like other characters in Japan where their movements are much more, when they move, it's meant to be like a faster motion or stronger motion in general, those kind of things. And I'm not an expert on animation, but this is things that I've heard around the bay from other animators that I know.
Another thing I noticed with that specific era of animation that you were talking about, and specifically with Tom and Jerry, Popeye the Sailor Man, a lot of those animation styles, or just the way those shows looked, were very much so Three Stooges-esque, in the sense it's a lot more slapstick comedy and slapstick humor, and like the way that it was like violence, but like funny violence, or even like everything was funny at that point in time. I can't think of a lot of animations that were like, there were stints here and there, maybe certain episodes of Tom and Jerry where Tom's depressed about not getting the girl or something like that, but it was more so comedic in nature.
Yeah,
other animation.
I think that feeds into one of the biggest differences between how the rest of the world sees animation versus America sees it as well. Like America sees it for children. They see it's only a medium that children can like should watch. Like there's some it's like a stigma if a child adult watches cartoons. Like, why are you watching cartoons still? Like, it's the mentality of it. It's for kids. When in reality, you can make anything with animation. Like Spawn, it was an animated series years ago, and that was not for kids.
The HBO Spawn, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. No, 100%. I completely agree with that. It was funny too. Back in the day when they used to have there was like 6-minute reels that played cartoons before the movies. Those were for adults, but they're meant for comedic value. These are not meant to be taken seriously at all. So they were either for kids, small kids to laugh at, or for adults to laugh at and be silly. But at the same time, literally in the East, they're making anime and things of that nature that were meant for, except for Astro Boy, everything was meant to be had more. Even Astro Boy, I guess, too, still had stakes. There was gravitas to the things they were creating too. So you're right, Otis, that it 100% was the mentality of the audience as well.
You know, put it in perspective. Like, I believe Family Guy and Naruto came out the same year. And
Is that true?
Yeah,
Jesus
1999.
Christ. Jesus God Almighty.
So what do you guys think the shift was in America, in which we got a lot more darker to like something like Batman the Animated Series, where you got or Samurai Jack, in which you get darker toned anime. Maybe the story writing, if that could be part of it, but the animation seems to be a lot darker, or maybe just the stories in general. Like the show itself is a darker tone show, or more adult oriented show versus like we talked about with the Bronze Age, I guess you could say, of animation with Tom and Jerry and all that early Disney stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like what you're call. I wouldn't call that a phase. Like, those are more so anomalies than the norm. Like, it wasn't like a lot of those out. Like, I mean, yes,
yeah. To me,
Batman the Animated Series exists. Superman exists. Samurai Jack exists. X-Men exists. But like in between those, you have thousands of like Rocko's Modern Life. You have Rugrats. You have Cat Dog. Like that's all the same phase of animation. It's not like a different time. It's just a different style that was being done at the time.
I say that. Well, I could probably go back into the bag and find a lot more examples of it. But when you look at like those, you look at something like Courage the Cowardly Dog. There was, I'm not going to say it wasn't a dominant thing, obviously, because again, that's still at that point, I think cartoon was still viewed as a child thing. But there were a lot more like examples. There's at least 10 or maybe a little bit more examples of different cartoons that had that darker, serious tone to them, or adult themed topics.
Yes, because even it's the 90s.
Kid shows like
yeah.
Codenames Kids Next Door, they were like adult themed episodes, or like certain runs to them that were darker.
Like when you're talking about like that's a 10-year gap between those series that you're talking about though. Like there's not like that's not a phase. Like that's one example, and then another example years later, then another example years later. You feel me?
So was Courage and Codenames Kids Next Door not at the same time?
No, like Courage came out in like 99. Kids Next Door is like 2003, 2004.
Is Courage that old?
Yeah,
Courage. So yeah, he wasn't part of the original phase of the original Nicktoons, but he was like in the next. I think he's like the second. Phase.
He came out around the same time as like Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's
Laboratory.
He was
the Ed, Ed and Eddie. Yeah, with like the second age of Nicktoons. So the original one was Rugrats, Doug.
No. Those are Nicktoons. Those are Cartoon Network.
Those are all Cartoon Network.
Those are Doug and Rugrats. Those are Nickelodeon.
Those are Nickelodeon.
No, yeah, Doug and Nickelodeon. I'm talking about Dexter and Kids Next Door and Courage the Cowardly Dog and Ed, Ed and Eddie.
Those are Cartoon Network shows. Yes. I think about Rocko's Modern Life also. Rocko's Modern Life was also next phase. But these were all in the 90s, so kind of in that era. So it was. I think what happened too, to answer another question you had before those soups, was the idea that some of the creators, like Bruce Timm and them, for example, with Batman the Animated Series, they came from an era where they loved the comic books from the 80s and earlier. And so they were trying to adapt those comic books, because those comic books had darker stories or more adult stories. They kind of leaned into having a little more adult themes in the animated series as well. They were still kid friendly enough, but they were definitely weren't pandering to children in the same way they would have in years past. Like the Ninja Turtles, for example, that comic book by Frank Miller is dark as I don't know. I'm sorry, not Frank Miller. By Eastman and Laird. This is parodying Frank Miller's Daredevil is dark as I don't know what. But the cartoon show in the 80s when it originally started was very much like a kid's show, undeniably. But the Batman animated series is very much those themes and stuff. The first episode, he bleeds. Batman is bleeding in that first episode. So
yeah, that is a good point to bring up, in that obviously we know Japanese animation is usually like a derivative from manga, and the manga at that point was kind of just like literally like the copy paste to a lot of extents of the animation was that of the manga. But when you look at American like our art in comic strips and comic Archie cartoons and a lot of early cartoons, they were all, like you said, kid friendly and for kids. And then once you get into the era of comics in which you have the detective stories, or that was the first Batman check, remember?
Yeah.
You have that line of comics in which the not even just the animation, but the illustration is becoming to get more dark tone, and the stories are getting more like that. So I guess that could be a really big inspiration and reason on why because again, I still believe, like again, like you said, with American animation, I can't think of any shows like any Courage the Cowardly Dogs or Samurai Jacks during that whole early era of like Tom and Jerry, Popeye the Sailor Man stuff. Even the
Looney Tunes,
even the first Superman animated series, like before, like way back in the day.
the Fleischer, the Max Fleischer. Yeah,
that was more like, I watched all those. My grandpa got me those on DVD. Like, so I was seeing those were more like playful and not as serious tone as the preceding version of it that happened in like I think maybe the early 2000s, maybe.
Yeah.
Or was it the 90s too?
90s.
Okay.
But I think both y'all are right though, and even Keith Stanley is that it is a matter of
you
have a good beard, my friend. But it's just the evolution. It part of it is just the audience. It's not just the audience, but it's the people that were the audience when they were younger are now, they have an opportunity to tell these stories as they get older. And the stories that you grew up watching that inspired you to create in the first place, if those were more adult or more mature stories, those are the ones that's going to influence the art that you yourself make. So it's Keith Stanley mentioned earlier how he grew up watching American cartoons. I imagine it may have been something like Transformers or even G.I. Joe, whatever those things back in the 80s are popular. The Turtles, the original Turtles show, those were of a certain era. They were originally meant to be literally advertisements for toys. They weren't really trying to tell compelling stories at all. He-Man especially. They were just trying to be power fantasies that were engaging and entertaining enough for young kids, young boys especially, having to buy toys. So part of what happened, and look at something as far as like jumping way ahead to Adventure Time, which I just recently started watching, which is a great show, I think. Completely different. Look at the art style of He-Man or Thundercats to Adventure Time. It's unrecognizable. You couldn't tell me that those were both made by people. They're so vastly different in a sense. So it depends on what the intentions of the artists and creators are.
Okay, moving forward, I kind of want to start to get into the modern day as we're starting to get close to wrapping up. When you look at, like, again, a lot more anime that you've seen recently, there's a lot more, I guess, like CG style, like instances of it. The example being the Dragon Ball Broly Super movie, or even a lot of scenes in the most recent season of Demon Slayer, in which they'll kind of like, it'll like be
every season of Demon Slayer has CG.
You said what?
Let's say every season of Demon Slayer has CG in it.
Yeah. You seeing that become a lot more prevalent in animation within maybe 5 years or so, maybe more. Otis probably knows that a little bit more than me.
About 2018.
It's becoming a lot more prevalent. Where do you guys see that? Why do you guys see that shift kind of happening, where it's starting to be dropped into a lot more animation?
One, it is a cheaper form of animation than the actually drawing every page and panel to translate into the slides.
Significantly.
It's since it's 3D model like that, you can just kind of make quicker animations. Like it's a quicker turnaround time to make stuff like that than it is in the standard animation. And then the biggest thing is just the fact that it looks nice. It pops off of the page a little bit more, and people are starting to enjoy it. And the application of how to use it is becoming more skillful. Like I said, like Demon Slayer's used 3D animation in literally every fight that they've had in that series. Jujutsu Kaisen uses it heavily. God of High School uses it. Dragon Ball Super, like it's it's becoming like before it was a stigma where like you didn't want to see that, like because it was just so badly done. But I guess over time people are starting to find ways to skillfully apply it, and it looks nice.
Yeah, because before back in the day, it was a 95 when they made Toy Story 1. When Pixar made that, and it was the idea of being able to use completely CGI or computer generated images that were appealing enough to the eye that people liked it, and it was being able to be applied to making characters. But then they found ways to kind of oftentimes blend things too, so it's not just CGI characters. They may have like some where it looks like 2D art with CGI on top of it or whatnot. But now they don't draw on paper anymore for animation. Typically, they do draw everything in computers in some capacity. It's like O said, it's significantly easier, significantly cheaper, and also it saves so much time and money and effort. And if you don't have to worry about the pages getting damaged or anything like that. I think everyone here has seen the original Akira film, the 2-hour film. That budget on that movie was like crazy at the time. It took a long time, a lot of effort, and that was all hand drawn, and it was over 2 hours long. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. But it shows that type of artwork is stunning, but it's a bygone era. You can't do that kind of stuff anymore.
So why do you that being the case? Why do you feel like? Because I feel like that style of like animation being CG didn't really catch on heavy until, like he said, with Toy Story. Because I look back at something like the Beowulf animated movie or the Heavenly Sword animated movie, or there were movies like that in which that entire style was animated like that for that entire movie, but they didn't really catch on, or they didn't really have praising reviews as something like Toy Story. Because I'd argue the quality is similar, if not like more, at least for Beowulf is more supposed to be more realism involved with like the grittiness of it. I'd argue the quality is the same. Why do you guys think it just didn't catch on the same way?
I mean, it's just the market for it a lot, because like when people are going to a new product, whether they as well accepted or not is going to have a lot of impact on if other people are going to copy that into their own thing. So like when the anime like Berserk 2018 comes out,
don't bring that up.
People aren't going to like want to like, yeah, let's make it look like that. It's all about like having the right project be successful with it. And Dragon Ball Super was one of the flagship people to have that mix of that 3D animation and the 2D animation. And no one's going to try to pretend that wasn't well received. Like as much as we didn't enjoy the story, that is one of the most watched anime of all time.
Yeah, but it was that's the pinnacle of evolution, though. The way it looked, Dragon Ball Super looks very different than Dragon Ball Z. And those first few episodes were really, really rough, abysmally rough at how they were trying to do it. But by the time it got to, we've all seen that fight where it's Frieza and Goku versus what's the old boy's name at the very, very end? Yeah, Jiren. That one fight scene is like better than most movies. It's an episode of a show. They put their whole ass into that episode. It's like crazy, the caliber of artwork. So I think it really boils down to Dev, like anytime new tools are being used or new resources have been discovered, it does take there's a learning curve. And once you kind of master the art of using it, that's when you can really, really shine. Even with Pixar, if you look at Toy Story 1's, which is still great, I love the movie, but the actual CGI doesn't look nearly as good as like something like as far as like Incredibles 2 or Toy Story 4. It's a world of difference. It's a world of difference.
Again, thank you to the 11 people that are currently listening to us on the Wisdom. Again, the floor is open for anybody that has any questions or thoughts they want to converse in the conversation with us. You're more than welcome to request to come up. Getting into we brought up Pixar slightly, but I kind of want to give them their flowers a little bit. Obviously, their animation is unique. Granted, I feel like a lot of the best parts about that came from the story and the writing, but I will say that animation style is iconic, and you see it mass produced with different, like, people have attempted it. Another example being that weird stint that Cartoon Network had where they did another Batman animated series that was like that. The Green Lantern series they had like that. Other people kind of tried it and it didn't work.
DreamWorks exists.
DreamWorks' whole studio tried with Gru and the Despicable Me series and
Shrek.
Yeah, but which was wildly successful though. Yeah, Shrek.
Yeah, granted that I think Emperor's New Groove was also very. Well, no, was that who was it?
Despicable Me.
You said you meant Despicable Me. My bad. I'm tripping.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah, you
speak
said
fast.
Gru. I don't know why I thought. Yeah, but yeah, Despicable Me. Granted, Despicable Me and Shrek were both wildly successful. Like
Wildly
you said
successful
before.
franchises.
Those
And also,
ones.
our boy Kung Fu Panda. That's also DreamWorks. Yeah.
Yes,
Damn,
it
that is that same style, isn't it? That's crazy. I
Mhm.
haven't seen that in a minute.
Again, like that's just the improvement of using that tool. Like
Yeah.
it gets so much better. It's like, oh, that is that type of animation, isn't it?
It's the same. Yeah. Yeah, it looks better. I mean, you have to. It is very. The thing is, too, it used to be distracting originally when they started doing these type of CGI things. It was like the way it was done. You couldn't get immersed in it. But they've gotten so much better at it that it's easy to get lost in it. And I'll bring it up now. The elephant in the room. I can tell Keith saying wants to say it. He's not going to say it just yet. The new Dragon Ball movie, the Dragon Ball Heroes, I believe it's called. That it's all CGI, and it does look different than the original 2D Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Super type of stuff. So I'm not as immersed just looking at that trailer. I don't know if it's going to transfer as well, whether you're using that style, but we'll see.
Right.
Yeah, it almost looks like a video game.
It looks exactly like a video game, the Budokai 3 or something.
Do you guys think that'll be the predominant thing going forward?
Mm-hmm. What DBZ does, the rest of the market follows.
But they'll probably refine that. I think they'll refine it somewhat. Yeah.
So the movie's out already, right?
I think in Japan.
Yeah, superhero. I think it came out in Japan, but I don't think it's out in the States yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I haven't really have you guys heard anything about reviews on that in particular?
Not necessarily, but I'm happy to see more content towards Gohan because I mean, stop hoeing my man, bro. Like,
Nah, I'm excited to see more content towards Gohan when it ends with Gohan not being ill.
He's supposed to be the main character of this movie. Like this is his movie.
He's
the main
100%
character of the
main
movie
character.
to be held at the end. Is the question.
I think so. I mean, it's his movie. Like
It is his movie.
he's on the cover of the movie.
Posters.
Bro, at this point, Otis, you telling me I damn near have to hold you responsible just for telling me this. It's bad. Because man, you remember the talks? We were like, bro, Gohan is in the tournament of power. Bro, Gohan about to show out. Bro, this is it. This is Gohan's moment. Oh.
Why did they keep nerfing? Not nerfing, but doing that.
It's not.
Because Toei Animation likes to bend him over sometimes. Repeatedly.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because he has some of the better moments and better movies. Like the BoJack movie to me is one of the better Dragon Ball
Movie
movies.
number 9.
That was him showing
Off
the fuck
strength of Vegeta whooping his ass when he was a shorty, he should be the GOAT right now.
Yeah.
Like
he
should
could have.
be
The thing is, he was
He's
destined
supposed to be.
the GOAT.
Like he was literally built that up, and then he said, "Oh no, can't do it anymore." Fans didn't like
what
it.
he did to Cell was iconic.
You
Come
realize that's the
on.
pinnacle. Still, people hold that as the people oftentimes think of the Cell Saga as the height of all Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was the star of
It's
that.
really- It's really the only two you can really put next to it. It's like it's either first time Goku went Super Saiyan or the Cell Saga. That's it.
Gohan went Super Saiyan 2 and destroyed
Yeah.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, that's like the iconic arc because then you have the development of like Vegeta kind of getting over his pride and shit. You see Trunks as a mysterious character.
It was the whole Android thing.
Roll the clip of Vegeta's arm getting shattered by the airdrop.
He didn't do it willingly. His pride
Nah,
he got humbled really bad in that entire arc. Like he was getting
He got
fucked.
humbled a lot.
He got humbled.
No,
Oh,
that was a
humbled
great
him.
arc.
Cell humbled him.
Cell humble, yeah.
Cell humbled him again.
He didn't even the one that wasn't even one of the numbers, the
The
gray
Cell
one.
Juniors.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah,
first
the Cell
one, the
Juniors.
first one that came with the red the gray dude who was like
Are you
this,
talking about
wasn't
that was Android 13?
Yeah, like
No.
the first one, he's like, that wasn't even one of the ones. Like he was like the first Android, and even
No,
Vegeta was scared of that one.
Then Vegeta actually flexed on that one and won, and that's why he was so cocky going towards 18.
Yeah, because
So
he
18 was playing
But he
Android.
went. Is that when he went like buff Super
Vegeta
Saiyan?
got fucked up by 13, didn't he?
because Goku basically had a heart attack fighting 13, and Vegeta saved his ass.
No, that's 19. You're talking about Android 19.
But that's
He's talking
19.
about
Which one's
Super
13?
Android
then?
13 is what he's talking about. The movie one.
Oh, the
animated
movie. You're talking about the movies, though.
Oh,
Oh, the
okay.
movies.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Android 19. No
Oh,
problem.
the movie.
Android 13 was to do with
different.
the trucker hat. I have my trucker hat.
And he had that
Mhm.
horrible accident in the dub.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was terrible in the dub.
Man,
His
I
accident.
Shout
mean-
out to Dragon Ball Z Bridge.
That was just
Yeah,
a
that
phase
was-
of like Vegeta getting bitch because you saw what Broly did to him.
He didn't even touch
Oh
Broly.
my
The thing is,
God.
that's because Toriyama. We're getting off topic, I know, but Toriyama hates Vegeta so much. He kept bitching him for so long, for so many years. That's why. So that's something else altogether.
All right. Just yeah.
Sorry about
great.
that massive rant there. We went on,
No, that was good. Again, you people that if you're a fan of us or you've seen any of our content before, you know how we get down. Tangents are going to happen. Tangents are inevitable.
I do have one final question before we get out for everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What is the pinnacle of animation to you? Like what show, movie, whatever?
Base Day Night series, like the you know Sagittarius versus Lancer for me. I just love that fight scene.
Yeah, Fate stays. Yeah, that's,
Or not
wanna
Fate Stay
give
Night.
you
It was
that.
Fate.
That was
whatever
Fate
one.
Apocrypha.
Yeah,
that's
Apocrypha,
up
thank you.
there. That's
But
definitely
like
up there.
immediately after that episode, the animation goes to shit.
It went to shit. I think that's probably why I like it so much. I'm like, this is the last one, man. This shit was so good. It was just so good to me, man.
Yeah, that's obviously really high up on everyone's list, probably if you've seen it. But this is our own personal opinion, right? We don't have to be,
Yeah,
okay.
our own personal. It's not like
We're not being objective here. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not my favorite. It's like it's up there. It's probably like my top 10 favorite fights in animation. It had to be in Naruto, and it's probably I think the Rock Lee Dara fight.
Yeah, true.
So smooth.
That was beautiful.
You get to see like his speed and power, like
The way they did perspective.
yeah. I think the
Like-
sand was a cheat code because they tell you how hard the sand is, and you see him just like shatter it. So you get the idea of how strong he is. Either that or maybe one of the Sasuke fights there. Like Naruto to me has some of the better. Like, see, I love when characters just throw hands. So
Right.
anytime a
Like,
character
that's
like
cheating.
me is just throwing hands, stopping
Well-
it super fast.
Yeah,
So
but
So
we,
they have a,
we lost that fight though.
he did. We know, nigga. I know it was coming up.
but still, it's a moral victory. What's the? I forgot. Ari always tells me there's a
Being
type
in the
of artist.
hospital for months, I would not call it a moral victory.
I mean, he has a bowl haircut, man. He has a bowl haircut. But maybe someone in the chat knows this too, but there's a type of artist that shows will bring in these artists just to animate either single episodes or single fight scenes. Like the Kakashi versus Obito fight was done by these like master illustrators just because to capture that. I think the Madara introduction was done by the same team. to do
I
that.
lied. Yeah, that's it. That right
But
there. I
the-
forgot. That's the one.
Yeah, so
Madara fight.
those master illustrators are there just for small moments. That of course you can't. Those are just the pinnacle of artwork that's done.
My bad. I meant I forgot about that. I meant to bring that. Yeah, that's my. That's probably like my top 3. That's like maybe my favorite and one of all time because he's
Which
like
one? Madara?
the Madara
Madara,
introduction
oh,
where he's
yeah.
fighting the United
Right,
Nations.
everyone. He's fighting everyone.
Yes, dropping meteors and like I don't like. There's a weird thing. I don't even know what it is about it. But when he drops the second meteor and the way the clouds split,
Mhm.
the clouds just look a certain way where it just looks dope to me. I can't explain it. Maybe it's the lighting. I don't know. It just looks dope.
Yeah, but it was specifically. They put more money towards that. Yeah.
But that's my favorite one. Otis or
Otis, you got it.
I was the first one. Yeah, anybody else?
Did you go already? I'll go last.
No, I'm trying to think. Keith, what'd you say yours was again?
The Fate Apocrypha,
Yeah,
Lancer
Fate, that's
versus
right.
Sagittarius.
That's right. Yeah, you can go next though. I'm trying to think. Make sure.
I'm gonna go split for 2 because there are 2 different animation styles, and I gotta highlight them both for what they did great. One is I'm gonna go with more recent with Love, Death, and Robots. That the final episode with the girl with the metal.
That was freaky, man. That was
Man,
freaky.
I have never
was-
seen animation
That fucked me up. I'm
mirrored
sorry.
to like it was some scenes where it's like, is that real or is that animated?
It's all
It feels
animated,
so
but that
crisp.
fucked me up.
And how they
I
the water, the movement of the water, movement of her chains, movement of her hair. It's so realistic and so well done that like I've never seen anything quite to that level. But then to go the opposite direction, just to come how technical and crisp the animation was, we gotta go with God of High School when
Yeah.
Jin Mori was fighting the guy in with his arms bound.
Yep.
Like
I-
how crisply you could see the motions between those two fighting and crossing arms and legs was beautiful. I've never seen anything like that before, and so I got to give kudos for that. Because
yeah, I'll give you both of those actually. That by the way, we'll talk about Love, Death and Robots later. That's coming up, but that final one, that literally shook me, man. I was like, it's amazing, but it shook me. It did shake me. And they're screaming and stuff. For those who haven't seen it, that scream, like I was like, I can't handle this. But yeah, that was dope. Good picks, good pulls, really good pulls there. So I'm gonna say the one that obviously y'all know I'm gonna say this is my favorite of all time is Akira. That's what got me into manga in the first place. What got me into anime really back in the day. So I have to give it flowers. I always will. And it was hand drawn too. And then the other one that I like is an older one. It's by the same team, the same director that made Ninja Scroll. It's actually Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust.
Oh yeah.
I know it's a film. It's not a series, but it's a very beautiful.
Like that's when I used to, like Charlie has told stories about like anime movies that he used to rent regularly. That Appleseed, Samurai X.
Yep.
And
Appleseed back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, Appleseed. Yeah, Appleseed was my jam. Yeah. That was my thing. There's so much high quality animation that kind of went under wraps in that 2000s, 2010s phase, man. We gotta do some episodes around some forgotten stuff eventually, but
we'll have to do like a Forgotten Gems or Overlooked Gems or something like that. There's a lot of them, and obviously we've thrown lots of shout outs to Jujutsu Kaisen, which is amazing. The movie is Zero, the art that's because that uses CGI and 2D beautifully was great. The more recent My Hero Academia movies look great as well. So they've studied their game so much with anime, and even with if you go into American art, American or Western animation, they've had some. I mean, they use CGI more for their obviously the Pixar studios, but one I really like was Soul. If y'all saw, so I know some of y'all seen Soul.
Oh man, come on now.
It's beautiful. It's not trying to it's close to the Studio Ghibli, and that's not trying to look super detailed or crazy, muscle strenuous. You can't see all this non crazy details, but what they show is beautiful. It is genuinely jaw dropping, inspiring. So
love it.
Well, that's everything I have. Do you guys have any closing remarks about the animation evolution?
Just that I just hope it continues. I want to make sure that there's a bar that's continually raising. Like don't start going back. We don't need more things that look like. Well, let me not do that. Let me not do the Cartoon Network, because I mean, people really enjoy like the animation of Adventure Time and stuff like that.
I do, nigga.
I don't like the animation style at all, personally. But I mean,
so before we go, because I just started watching Adventure Time and I actually enjoy it. I was really hating on the animation before I saw it.
I love the show.
I love the show. I love the show
not
too.
The animation.
It's a feeling, man. The whole show is a vibe. Like my wife just walked in, so she heard y'all slandering Adventure Time, and it'd be over with. But
hey, tell her
Adventure Time.
That's
what Adventure Time.
My niece was just walking around with a Finn hat on yesterday.
No. Shout out to Time.
It's a whole feeling, man. Just watching that show, you can be depressed, having nightmares and shit, bro. You watch him Adventure Time. It's just like I'm surprised no one mentioned Flapjack, or a Chowder talking about animation, because that's the vibe that Adventure Time puts me in.
No, like Flapjack, Chowder, those are like feel good animations to me.
Flapjack is disturbing. I ain't gonna hold you. Flapjack's always been disturbing.
but you're right. It is a vibe, and I think having watched it wouldn't work with if the artwork for Finn and Jake was in the Bubblegum Princess or whatever her name is. It was super duper high res. That's not what.
And they've done parodies like that. And it looks so disturbing. They've high res the Adventure Time characters, and it's creepy.
Yeah, it's not. That's not what. They do
those in the actual show. They'll have instances where everybody, super high resed up for a second or a couple frames, and it just looks weird. And
like some of the episode when they gender bent Marshall Lee and Finn, they scaled up that animation significantly towards what the rest of the stories look like.
Yeah. So that's what I think it is too. Like Oda, for example, who does One Piece, he clearly is a supreme artist. It's a deliberate choice he has to draw the characters the way they are. I think it's obviously the same thing with Adventure Time. They knew what they were doing with that art style. It wasn't that they couldn't draw better. They chose to draw it.
It's another animation. Look, an example. Like, I really enjoy One Piece. Do I enjoy their animation? Not so much.
Yeah, that's yeah. I agree. Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, this has been another episode of the Then and Now podcast. To our people and friends on Wisdom, to the 18 people in here in the room, thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you guys for being fans. Oh, well, I don't even know if you're fans yet. We appreciate you guys for giving us your time, for watching for majority of the entire show. And we appreciate it. We're going to try to be a little bit more active on here, if at all possible, and give you guys some great content going forward. I'd like to thank our special guest, Mr. Lakeith.
Thank you for having me.
You don't have this love in his name, bro.
Honestly, the love is silent, but you know.
it's like when you look at LeBron, it's like the big L, little E.
Yeah. And then the big B afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Big K. So yeah, thank you guys. This has been another episode of the Then and Now podcast. We will see you guys next time. Thank you.
Gary Kelly.
Did you just say R. Kelly at the end of that?